Are you ready to face your Excel fears? Because if you clicked on this video, I'm sure you don't know much about Excel and you are tired from your colleagues who are looking at you as if you were an alien. But don't worry, I got you covered because I'm gonna show you the basics and we're gonna even create a mini report. Now, if you are interested in Excel, you can also subscribe to the channel, and please, if you like the content, just click on the like button under this video. So let's go. Let's start our journey by opening the program. So start. Here you can see Excel is pinned because I love Excel. Now if you don't find it, just search for it and click on the app. Now I have Office 365 version. If you don't have the same version, don't worry. The concepts are the same, only the interface will vary slightly. So here you have a choice. You can open a recent file, go to open, and here under browse you can search for another file. Let's press on cancel. Under home you can start from scratch, blank workbook. Now something that people don't know is that you have templates. Why reinvent the wheel when you have templates and you can choose from? So for example, you have calendars and so on. You can search for your template. So for example, budget, press enter. And here I have this one that I like. So I click on it, I can press on create and I can start using it, modify it and do whatever I want. Now obviously $350 for a wedding is not gonna cut it, your bride might run away. But anyways, let's just close this. And if you have an older version, you might have less templates, that's fine. Let's go back to home, double click on blank workbook, and ta-da! This is your Excel sheet. Now let me explain to you how it works. It's like a restaurant. In a restaurant you have a menu. The menu here is called ribbon, you can see it on top, and it has tabs. Here are the tabs, and under each tab you have the options. Now when you hover the mouse on an option, you can see what it does. You can click on tell me more and get some help. And you can also see if it has a shortcut. So for example, this is the shortcut for filter. Now let me go back to home, and here you will have groups. So alignment is a group, font is a group, and so on. And this restaurant has a lot of items on the menu. So obviously Excel cannot show everything. If you want to see more details, you have those small arrows. For example, I click on this arrow and I can see a lot of things about font. The last thing I want to show you about the ribbon is that you can just hide it. If you feel you cannot breathe, just right click here, you have collapsed the ribbon. In older version of Excel, it's called unpin. So I'm just gonna collapse it, it's gone. Now we can breathe, perfect. If you want to get access to the option, just click for example on data and you see what's under data. And if you want to bring back the ribbon, right click, remove this collapsed ribbon, and in older versions of Excel it's called pin. So I'm just gonna remove it and get it back. Now I'm gonna transform myself into Wikipedia for a second and tell you that Excel is a bunch of columns, like you can see here, and rows. It has more than 1 million rows and 16,000 columns. That's insane and nobody can fill a full Excel sheet. Now let me show you something. If you have some data, for example, on this side, let me just move here and write 1111. Let's go back. And if you want to toggle between your data and here, if you're trying to do it with the arrows here, it's gonna kill you, you're gonna spend so much time. Now the best way to do this is you just click on a cell and you use Ctrl arrow to the right. What will happen? It will go from this blank cell to the first cell where you have data. If I press the same again, since there is no more data, I'm gonna go to the last column in my Excel sheet. And you guessed it, if you do Ctrl arrow to the left, it's the same concept. Now let's try Ctrl arrow down. Here we were at this cell and we went down to where my data set ends. So that's very useful when you have some data sets, and obviously if you do Ctrl arrow down again, you go to the last row that you have in your Excel sheet. Ctrl arrow up and we are back, up again, back, and that's it. If you want to go back to the top left cell that you have in your Excel sheet, just do Ctrl Home and you're back. Now, enough of theory, it's boring, right? Let's do something fun. We're gonna add some columns. So I'm just gonna color here, go to Home. I'm just gonna use this ugly yellow, and here I'm gonna do the same. Let's write a 1. Let's try to add a column, for example. The row is the same concept. So I can click on my column, right click, and I can press on Insert. If you want to delete a column, this is the delete, same concept. So if you do Insert, you can see that everything shifts to the right. For rows, it's the same concept. Right click and Insert. You can insert 2 rows, 2 columns, 3, whatever you want. Let me show you. So if you select, for example, those 2 rows, right click, Insert, you can see I have now 2 rows that will be inserted. There is also a shortcut for this insert and delete. So let me show you with columns. Here you can click on one column, and if you press on Ctrl plus, you start adding, Ctrl minus, you start removing. Let's talk about cells, which is the most important thing that you have in Excel. And a cell is an intersection between a column, like for example the G column, and a row, the 6th row. So for example, this is one cell, this is another one, and here this cell will be called G6. How do I know? Well, there are 2 ways. First way, I can check the intersection, so G and 6, or I look here and I find the cell address. So it's like Google Maps. You know, when you want to go somewhere, you need to put an address, and each cell has a unique address in my Excel sheet. Now, if you want to go, for example, to cell F500, you're not gonna start going down, you're gonna die like this. You can come here, type F500, press enter, and there we go, we are there. Let's go up again with Ctrl arrow up, and let's select multiple cells. Multiple cells are called a range. So what you could do is just click on one cell, keep the mouse pressed, and then you can select others. So this is one range, or you can click on one cell and use shift with the arrows on the keyboard. This way you can just select a range. Now what is this range called? And this is very important for your formulas. You have to look at the cell that is on the top left, so F3 in this case, and the cell that is on the bottom right, which is G7. So for example, this range is F3 column G7. You're gonna use this in the formulas, so you're gonna remember me later on. Now let's look at Excel sheets. All you have seen is one sheet, and your sheet is here. It's called sheet 1. You see, it's very creative. If you want to change the name, double click, and for example, type data, press enter, this is a new name. If you want to add sheets, you have this plus sign, click on it as many times as you want, those are new sheets. And if you just click on one, keep your mouse pressed, you can just drag and this sheet becomes the first one. If you want to delete a sheet, right click, and here you have delete, it's gone, we are back to the data sheet. One best practice that I advise you to do, and that will be a lifesaver because it will make your analysis much more neat. You see here you have grid lines. It doesn't look good when you have data. So just go to view, here you have grid lines and remove them. This will declutter your sheet and make things easier to read. Let's try to type something. So for example, subscribe to the channel. There we go. And here my $1 million question is, did I write in cell E4, F4, or both? Well, the answer is E4. How did I know? If you click on it, you have this thing called formula bar and you can see what's inside the cell. If I move to F4, there is nothing in it. And if I want to resize my column, I can just click here in the middle. I can move it manually, you can see, or if I double click, it will do it for me. Now you can resize multiple columns or rows, that's the same concept. You just select them, resize, and all of them will have the same size. Now this is for rows, same concept, we have resized them. In case you did something in Excel you didn't want to do, what you can do is press Ctrl Z this will undo the last action. So the more I press on Ctrl Z, it will undo one action after the other, starting from the last one. One of the things I was struggling with a lot when I started working on Excel is to change the text in a cell. So for example, if I go to this one and I want to change the text, for example, I write text, I have a problem because whatever was before is gone. And if it was an important password, then I have a problem. But don't worry, I'm gonna tell you what you can do. So if you did a mistake, press escape, and there you go, you get back what you had in the cell. You also have Ctrl Z in case you just wrote something and pressed enter. Now let me show you how you can edit this content. The first way is to double click in the cell, and now you have a cursor. Use the arrows, and here you can just start typing something else. That's one way, press enter. The other way is using a shortcut, so F2, same thing. Now we are inside this cell and we can change whatever we want. And finally, you have the formula bar. You click inside it and you make some changes. Let's go to formulas now. You're gonna tell me, I barely know Excel for 10 minutes and you want to write formulas? Well, this is how we work in this channel. Let me show you how it works. We're just gonna come here and do equal. Formulas, they start with equal, and then you can select a cell. I'm doing it with the arrows. You can do it with your mouse, it's the same. Press enter and you get the same text. Now here, if you notice, that's the text, and here this is the formula. The user will see only the text because that's the result of a formula, but in fact this is what you have. So if you change something here, for example, it will also change there. Now Excel is called also the copy paste tool, and everybody loves to copy paste. So for example, if you want to copy the content of a cell, you just go select the cell, Ctrl C, you go where you want to paste and you do Ctrl V. You can do it on several cells. So for example, I'm gonna select those cells and do Ctrl V, or you can even copy multiple cells. So Ctrl C here, and you can just do Ctrl V, it will paste the content. Now you can do the same for formulas, or you can drag. So let me show you. I'm just gonna show you the dragging option. Obviously here it will work the same. So once you put the cursor here on the bottom right of the cell, it becomes a cross. It's like magic. And now you can drag the formula. Once you drag a formula, this is E4, you go down E5, E6, E7, it automatically adjusts. Now if you want to learn more about how this works, there is something called absolute versus relative referencing. There is a lesson about it, the link is in the description. Now let's go back here and try to do the same. You notice that here it will be a text and not a formula. Now let's assume that you want to move the content of this cell here. Obviously you can do copy paste and things like this, but if you move the cursor to the bottom of the cell and you just click on it, keep it pressed, you can just move the content, and you can do it for two cells also. Same concept, you just move it like this. Another thing that is important is wrapping the text. So let me just write some gibberish here, doesn't matter. It's exceeding the width of the cell. So what you could do is just go to home, and here you have this ABC wrap text. There you go, it will wrap your text. Now that we have done a lot of work on Excel, it's time to save. So to save, you just go to File, and you have two options, Save and Save As. Now, if it's a new Excel file like this one, it doesn't matter. Whatever you select, it will ask you where you want to save. So you can, for example, browse. I can put it in this folder, give it a name, and press on Save. That's fine. If it's an existing file, so you already saved it, if you go and select Save, it will automatically override where you have saved last, and the file will be there. If you want to save it with a different name, you can use Save As. Now let's go back, and I'm gonna show you a professional trick. So this is called autofill. Excel could be very tedious if you don't know how to use it, but if you are lazy and efficient, it's amazing. For example, this is Jan, Feb, and March. If I just select them and I click here and I start dragging, automatically Excel knows what are the months that are gonna come after. So I don't have to type all of them manually, I can do it like this. Same thing for numbers. For example, 1 to 3, you can just do this and it will continue the series of numbers. And now finally we're gonna move to the last part, which is your mini report. To do this, I'm just gonna show you a trick in Excel also. If you are in this cell and you want to go down, you press enter, so that's enter. If you want to go to the right, you press tab. So that will be very useful for data entry. For example, if I have a range, if I press enter, I'm going down within my range, tab, 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 it goes down like this. Let's try to go to our second Excel sheet and enter some data. So for example, you come here, as I told you, view, remove grid lines, we don't want them. And here I'm gonna put the names of a few people. So Franco, Biba, Mark, and Joan. Perfect. Let's put the months, it's a sales report, so same trick I showed you before. Jan, Feb, we can just drag it to December. There we go. Now we can start entering the data. So I'm gonna use our technique. I'm just gonna select the range, and here I'm gonna put, for example, 23, tab, etc. Let me do this very quickly so I don't waste your time. You can try it on your own. There we go. You see I'm faster than my shadow. Now let's do a little bit of formatting because this is really ugly. So what you can do is select all those columns, double click, and this makes it more compact, easier to read. The other trick I want to show you is assume that you have Mark here and you want to put Mark before Biba. Obviously you don't want to start typing, moving things around. It's not very nice. I know it's ladies first, but for once we're gonna do men first. So what we're gonna do is just click on the whole row and don't just do this. If you just do this, you have a problem. There is data, do you want to replace it? So press cancel. What you're gonna do is press on shift and do this. You can see I can move this around. Let's put it before Biba and release everything, and you can move this around. Now let's do a little bit of formatting. So you can add, for example, grid lines. Select this, go to home. Here you can select the grid lines that you want. So for example, we can select those. We can color. So select this, put it in blue, change the font color. That's much better. And here we go, you have your report. Last thing I want to show you is copying the format of a cell. So for example, this cell is red and you want to copy this format somewhere else. So instead of coloring each one, you can click on the format painter here and select the cell or the cells that you want to color. In this case, I'm going to select one. If you want to do multiple cells, double click and start selecting the cells or the range of cells. Now how to get rid of this annoying painter, because now wherever I click, it doesn't want to stop, just press escape. So that's about it for an overview of how Excel works.